anyone seen Rick Willard? All right, my name is Kyle Burgess. I'm the Director of Operations and Editor-in-Chief of Consumers Research Magazine. We are the nation's oldest consumer affairs organization. We work at the intersection of consumer education, emerging technology, and policy and regulation that affect consumer affairs. Consumers Research is interested in this technology, Bitcoin and blockchain. I promise our panel will be a lot less contentious than the last one. But Consumers Research is interested in this technology for all of the opportunities that it can bring to consumers. And I'm going to introduce our panelists, and then we're going to go in introduction order or explanation of what they all do in terms of tokenization in order of least complicated to more complicated. Actually, it's all very complicated to me. So we'll start with Ryan. He is the CTO and co-founder of Souls, which is the social online liquidity and exchange systems. Ryan, if you could, or I guess I'll go through everyone, sorry. Then there's also Ryan Molecke. Then Ryan Shea on the far end. He is with Blockstack Labs, and they work on identity. And then we have Chikara, and he's the technology strategist of 3 Pillar Global. Ryan, if you could go ahead and start, and then we'll go to Adi and then Ryan Shea.
Sure. I came out of the academic research computing industry back in 2014. So I was doing subcontracting work for NASA, working on supercomputing systems, and I got into day trading Bitcoin. So I went to where I started working with Bitcoin fintech startups. The first one was a company out of Zug, Switzerland, called Monetas, that was actually working on like a sidechain implementation and voting pools type software. And now they're running a Forex exchange, and they're making inroads in digital currencies in Africa. The second company I worked for was Shapeshift. I was one of the lead developers over there. And then more recently, I started up I was a founder of another Bitcoin currency exchange called Bridge 21 that we actually got into the Techstars Accelerator this summer. My newest company now is Social Online Liquidity and Exchange Systems. So we are actually working with permissioned ledgers, and we've actually moved away from proof of work, and we're working with the Byzantine fault tolerance consensus systems because specifically for us, it's more energy efficient and it does work. So one of the things that we're working on is basically tokenizing energy itself, and we're looking at having a backed asset class as opposed to a pegged asset like BitUSD or BitYuan in the BitShares network. Our currency will be energy efficiency coin, and it will be actually backed by the value of energy efficiency credits and credit earning investments. So we are actually building a platform that will allow people to start their own tokens, manage their own tokens. We see blockchain and permission ledgers similar to a stock issuance platform. And so we're going to have basically tools for people to issue their own tokens, manage their assets, and also connect that into brokerages.
I'm Adi Chikara, part of the solution management team at 3 Pillar Global. We are a product services firm focused purely on innovative technologies and monetization of data. We have been looking into blockchain for the past 2 years. We released our first production application for one of our clients on Ethereum in early February. It was the first production application on the Homestead network. Other than that, we are quite technology agnostic, so we have been working with Hyperledger, some sidechains and Bitcoins as well as other platforms as well, including Chain.com. Part of this is because we have a diversified portfolio of clients, about 60 of them, that are anything from enterprise to medium-sized companies, and they have different needs and different industries require different solutions. That's where we focus on. As we move into a lot more outside of fintech, our first application, GX Coin, was a digital security more related to fintech, and now we're working with our clients in healthcare, media, and education to diversify it even more.
Hi, my name is Ryan Shea, and I'm with Blockstack, and we have an application platform for building decentralized applications using the blockchain. And we provide identity, we provide authentication, data storage, and developers can plug into all this and actually build a decentralized application in a really simple way. We have a very large and growing developer community we have 1,200 developers in our Slack. We have meetup groups around the world, from here in New York to Hong Kong, Taipei. We have 2 computer science PhDs in distributed systems from Princeton on our team. We have quite a bit of expertise in the space. And we are also the largest non-financial production system running across any blockchain. You may know one of our products, onename.com, which it runs on top of the Blockstack network. And as far as tokenization goes, what we do is we tokenize identities, right? Identities for people and identities for websites and everything.
I think Rick is also walking up now. I'm just going to brag on them for a second while Rick's walking up. So,
Hey, man. How you doing?
Good to see you.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Good to see you. I'm so sorry.
sorry. You could just introduce yourself.
Hi, Rick Willard, Agentic Group. We are a consortium of 40-odd blockchain-related companies around the world. We consult with the country of Luxembourg. We consult with the Port of Rotterdam, The Hague. And our focus mainly is on creating alternative assets through the blockchain, through various processes. And I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. So Rick is a pioneer in what's called engagement media, and that includes digital outdoor.
Yeah, I did a bunch of those screens in Times Square. Sorry. Long time ago.
Adi's done a lot of research and consulting with the EU in the past. Dr. Molecke has a PhD in some stuff that I can't even pronounce and has written a lot of articles and things I can't pronounce related to nanoscience, right? That's correct?
Yes, nanoscience.
And Ryan Shea on the far end, he was inducted into Forbes' 30 under 30, so the IQ on this stage is pretty incredible. So I'm going to start with just a basic definition of tokenization, and if you could go down the line and tell me if that definition of tokenization applies to what you do, and if not, explain the difference, because I think, kind of like with the last panel, what is a blockchain to you all? I think tokenization means different things to different people. Many of you probably can think of the obvious ones, tokenization of assets, securities, derivatives, those kinds of things that we're familiar with in the financial markets, but this panel is about things that maybe we're not as familiar with that can be tokenized and put on a blockchain and transferred, the value can be transferred. So the definition that I've got, thank you Wikipedia, is the process of replacing sensitive data with unique identification symbols that retain all the essential information about the data without compromising its security.
Okay, so yeah, so we do focus on alternative assets a great deal. So how we define assets and digital assets, or meta assets as actually we call them, it is the extrusion of value from heretofore ignored processes, right? So there's supply chain, there are logistics, there's renewable energy, there are all of these sort of programs already in place to encourage people to be more efficient, to encourage people to be more conscious of where we get our energy, et cetera. And what we do is we actually basket those assets digitally, and we create community currencies in one part of what we do they're able to actually spur innovation and spur sort of money changing hands locally with people. So with the Rotterdam Port, for example, what we're doing there is we are creating assets, digital assets from their renewable energy, sort of carbon credits, and letting people who want to create startups that are relevant to the port, they actually are paid in those assets, and those assets are accepted by the local 7-Elevens, the local mom and pop shops, local restaurants, and in order to create a secondary sort of currency that is made to bolster the local infrastructure. So that's kind of one example. But there are lots of examples, quite frankly. So I'll just let the other guys talk.
Our focus for tokenization specifically is manifestation of a physical asset into the digital world. That's what we're helping our clients. Now, specifically in that, we tend to focus on not so much on the security aspect of it, but more on the how do you validate if it's real or not? I can right now, if I own a Ferrari on blockchain, doesn't mean I own a Ferrari in real life. I do own a nice car, but in any ways. It comes down to you still need an entity behind it that is strong enough to validate that the statement is true. And then you put it in the public domain, and then it becomes a tokenized piece of value I can use. An example being in education. If I have a degree in something, if my university says that I have a degree, like Cambridge goes out and say I have a degree in X, and then allows me, sends this information, releases it in public domain, ties it to my identity in digitally, it means something because the person who said it is Cambridge. And if people can validate that person who said it is Cambridge and the person who's tied it to is me, that means something. And that's what tokenization for us is coming down to, of helping existing companies and firms in the space who have the authority to say something, and then using service like OneName, where people can use their identity and put it all together, and that's where we are using tokenization.
I don't think Adi's kidding about the nice car. He's an amateur auto racer.
Nice. Okay, so for us, I would say that tokenization of value is really the basis of money itself. I mean, that is really what money is a token of value that people accept in exchange on a market. So I would break tokens of value into maybe 3 classes, where you have floating tokens, you have pegged tokens, which might be like BitUSD or BitYuan that's pegged to a fiat currency, and then you may also have backed tokens, which are actually representative of a physical asset or a investment of some type. And that's sort of what we're working on. Like we said, we're not really tokenizing physical assets, but things like energy or even energy efficiency or even just anything that could be socially valuable, incentivized behaviors even could be tokenized. And then we also, we're looking at tokens. That we sort of have this concept of tokens versus credits in our systems, where credits may be more of something that can be redeemed, like one-time redemption, and they may not be on open markets. They may have a set value. They may be used for philanthropic or healthcare credits tracking and that kind of thing. So credits versus tokens is another concept that we're sort of exploring.
What token means for us? What's the question again?
This like the computer science geek version of what a token is, and then how you guys interpret that.
Sure, okay. I think, so we've covered the tokenization. I mean, so there's like actual property that you have in real life where you can have a token that corresponds to that. There's tokens that are only digital, right? There's money, there's any kind of asset that only exists in the digital realm. In our case, when we have a token that corresponds to someone's identity, there's a token with a global unique name, very similar to a domain name, and then there's also a digital key that's associated with it, and this gives the user the ability to define their access control settings, and it allows them to update it and allows everyone that's connecting to the system to be able to see that update. So the tokenization also allows the user to be able to change their security model without having to re-notify each individual party that they're interacting with. So it's change once and then get updated everywhere. So you can think of actually domain names that you would register in the traditional domain name system. They are, you can register them with one registrar like GoDaddy, and then you can transfer them to another registrar like Namecheap. In a sense, those are tokens, but the difference is that the domain names on that system are in a centralized system where a company like VeriSign, all they do is they just change a few things in their database, and then that basically corresponds to the transfer. Whereas the domain names and identities on our system, they are on a decentralized network, like the blockchain, right?
So this isn't to anyone in particular, but what are some of the benefits that people, consumers or businesses, can gain from using tokenized assets or tokenized identity or tokenized anything that we're not currently seeing in the marketplace?
Okay, so one good example is permissioned access through tokens. So if you look at health, right, as one example, there are a lot of epigenomic tests, right, that pharmaceutical companies want to perform on your genetic code or your epigenetic code or whatever. So you own that. In a permissioned society on the blockchain, you should actually own your own genetic code. You should own your own identity in every sense of the word. So you can actually let out on the blockchain certain parts of your epigenomic strand, and you can have Sanofi or whomever experiment with that on a licensed basis. So you have a token that represents that payment to you, first your strand, and then that payment back to you in a pseudo-anonymous sense. Am I being clear?
Yeah, you're saying
Right.
that I messed up by giving 23andMe all my DNA.
Oh, yeah, you certainly kind of screwed that pooch. But yeah, the you know what I mean.
I do.
Yeah. Okay. I get in trouble like this all the time. But the upshot is that there's a lot. The blockchain allows certain permissioned access that, and this is just one thing of many that these guys I'm sure we'll talk about this morning. One way to pass tokens back and forth and create value or extrude value through processes that didn't exist before. We deal, like I said, in renewable energies. We deal in how to extrude value from supply chains through logistics, and there's actually a lot of value hidden and stranded assets within a lot of things that we do that we didn't think of before. But anyway, please.
I think right now in the industry, the sense of something needs to be completely on blockchain or something else is the industry is a bit too stuck on that. And a very easy way to move forward is a lot of times you can use it as a platform moving forward. Some of our clients that have complete trading platforms on existing systems, nothing to do with blockchain, they're adding just information of the trades onto the blockchain separately to allow more transparency to their users. If you're a title company, for instance, if you have bought a house, you go to a title company, you get all the title cleared, and once you do that, if the person puts it on the blockchain, I did all of the paperwork, and it was correct, and this is the new owner. It doesn't mean that next time you go in, you don't need a title company, but it becomes easier to validate if someone is fraud or not. Same thing for people like Carfax. If Carfax car history shows you who the ownership history was, it's not that it's given authority to say that you can start trading without the DMV. It just gives you a much quicker way of validating something and falsifying it more quickly. And that's what we are not taking advantage of right now, where there's a big step of, as long as people don't wait for a big switch, we'll wait for adoption. Once adoption reaches or when the tools reaches, we'll flip a switch and suddenly everything would be on blockchain, and start just using it within the existing systems, and they can have huge value impact.
Okay, so this question really goes to the heart of what Sol's our hook really is. So society has a lot of ways that we try to control behavior via negative reinforcement, via fines or punishments, but there's not really many ways that society has to reward positive behaviors. So, and that's what we really bring to the table, is we can actually incentivize, we can tokenize incentivized behavior systems. For example, with energy efficiency coin, this is a backed asset, and our company will actually be aggregating and holding these energy efficiency credits that are backing this asset class. So as people buy that, it actually makes green energy essentially more incentivized for society. It actually makes dirty energy sources like coal and oil more expensive and clean energy sources more cheap, because these coal and oil plants basically have to participate in this credit system. They have to buy these credits. So if we're participating in that market, we're buying up all those credits, it makes it harder for them to get it. So it's actually a way for society to fund energy efficiency itself, instead of the government having to come down and top down do that. And even right now, there's all these disjoint markets for energy efficiency with different prices in each state. And so what we will be doing, but basically de facto, is tying them up into one national market and having like a national average token that has an exchange rate to each one of the local ones. So we're actually, these permission ledger systems can have outside effects, because we're participating, especially with the backed asset classes, you can affect these external markets in ways that is good for society. And even we want to have like credits may be something that you qualify to get instead of buy. So you would prove that you ate a vegan meal to get the vegan credit, or you would prove that you had the HVAC, repair on your house, and you could get a home performance credit, based on that. And then those will be redeemable based on different government programs that incentivize those. So, yeah.
Can I jump in there? Because what we're doing in Luxembourg is really very similar to that. So, sorry, Ryan.
No.
But we definitely are trying to incentivize behavior. And so if you don't drive your car into the city, you can actually use those credits for the bus and travel for free. So, that's really this sort of ecosystem where you sort of drive behavior in a social sense is really important in this, because as jobs go by the wayside, as robotics and algorithms take over the sort of white collar and blue collar jobs, what do people do? How do people actually create value for themselves? Well, this is a secondary sort of environment, financial environment, where people can trade value without actually having to have cash. Cash is dead. Cash is already dying. So that being said, sorry, Ryan. I love to have cash, but I think our kids and our grandchildren especially won't even know what cash is. My daughter doesn't know what a rotary phone means.
Sure.
So, yeah.
I agree with that. I think in some time scale. I was going to ask, when you're talking about credits, are they tied to an identity and non-transferable?
They may be transferable, or they may be non-transferable, yeah.
They're tradable
It could
assets.
be either way.
Okay, because tokens are transferable.
Well, yeah, on credit systems, we're talking about more they may be philanthropic, contributions. Like someone wants to.
If you eat vegan and then you get a vegan credit, that shouldn't be transferable, right?
Right, exactly. So those would not generally be. They could be.
Of course, it should be.
But then someone could just buy their way into veganism.
Yeah, but this is a post-capitalist. This is what we're talking about. This is actually the end of capitalism. So it's more about a trading economy, and you can trade good for value.
I don't think I like that.
No, of course you have to like it.
My boyfriend and I I'm a vegetarian, and he's a meat eater, and so he just says that all the meat I don't eat is making up for all the meat he does. So in some ways.
That's how humans think, right?
Okay, it's like carbon offsets. So if I eat lots of meat or I do something else that contributes to suffering, then I can just offset it by just buying up a bunch of credits.
Yeah, but that's very 20th century, right? So,
Well, one of the systems we envisioned was say you want to incentivize, healthy living in some area. Say the Boulder community, philanthropic people want to incentivize people riding the bus, right? So you have some way of verifying that you rode the bus that day, and then you qualify for that credit that some philanthropic group wanted to have you do, right? So it wouldn't make a lot of sense to have that as a currency that's traded on an open asset where you have investors taking value out of it, right?
Yeah, I just think it's a good example of something that shouldn't be tokenized. It should be tied to identity.
Yeah,
in
that's
in
very true.
There is something.
Ryan,
It's actually all tied to identity.
why don't you tell us how tokenized identity offers opportunities for people that we don't currently enjoy?
Okay, sure. So I mean, like, digital identity doesn't need tokenization. You know, there are plenty of, I mean, there are several really bad decentralized identity systems. The most, you know, one of the most famous is PGP, where you have a digital key, and you can make signed statements about other people's keys, and you can send encrypted, digitally signed and authenticated emails to other people and receive them and decrypt other people's emails. But there are a few big problems with that, and one is the user experience. So if you want to authenticate someone, right, and know that you're talking to the right person, you have to double check this long number, which is their public key, their key ID, right? And that's really cumbersome, and it's prone to error. So that's a big problem. And then and actually there was a post yesterday where someone impersonated Linus Torvalds' key, and the entire graph of identities of the entire PGP system, because of the widespread use of shortened IDs, which are much less secure. And then the second thing is, PGP does not allow you to change your security model, right? It doesn't allow you to rotate your keys, and it doesn't allow you to have multiple keys on multiple devices. It doesn't allow you to have agility in your security. When you tokenize an identity, you get both the user experience. You don't have to check a really long sequence of numbers in order to know that you're talking to the right person. You can actually just look at their username, right? And you know that you're talking to the right person. And then the second thing you get is you have the ability to change your security model, add your devices, add your mobile phone, add your laptop, add another device, right? And if you lost your laptop, you can revoke the key, get a new laptop, and add it back to your identity profile. So with these, you actually get a much better, you get way more in terms of both user experience and security. So that's the reason why you would move from a non-tokenized identity system to a tokenized one.
I have one last question, and we're either out of time or maybe have time for audience questions. The last question I have is, what are some of the challenges you're facing in terms of interoperability, scalability, regulation? Because unlike the financial services, strictly speaking, there's lots of regulation. It seems like you guys are entering into new places. Anyone?
I can start. So from the place of interoperability, we see two kinds existing in the market, which are things that can be fungible, openly tradable in any market, credits, coins, etc. Non-fungible, possibly restricted trading, like physical assets. If you want to transfer something, car, a degree, if you're vegan or not. They're not so straightforward. You can go onto a bit exchange and start trading that. There's a third. After these two, we saw a market gap, which we just released. We're releasing a white paper on is a collectibles concept, where something is like a $5, which might be of the same value to anyone else as just $5. But if that was the $5 you received as your first paycheck, it has a different meaning, and that is something we see is going to come up in the market, which are tokens that can be traded but has a different meaning than just the same value as another type of that token. In terms of regulation, the easiest thing we have done specifically for our clients is, and how we got through most of our regulation, is being transparent to the authorities as well. Before, we were not just our technology stack, we were sending out letters to SEC through our lawyers of what we're doing, and we receive very positive impact saying, we don't have a regulation yet, but it all looks good, keep moving forward. And that's what we have done so far and working well.
I mean, we actually focus on stranded assets and on previously unknown assets through BPO and different processes. So unlike what he's talking about, we look at monetizing efficiencies, like carbon credits in a way, but throughout various pillars of society. So, for instance, in Luxembourg, we're doing like transportation ties into agriculture, ties into energy, ties into smart buildings, and all of these are nodes in a network that are throwing off these assets, and those assets then become fungible, sort of a currency locally. In this case, to spur innovation, to build innovation labs, to work with all the various sectors, again, sort of transferring that energy and transferring that money, if you will, to back into itself, to create new processes as a result. So that's how we kind of look at it, as a sort of a circular economy.
Yeah, I think interoperability is going to be the huge selling point for blockchains, permissioned blockchains specifically, because I think you're going to have basically data. They're going to be used as data storage mechanisms or notaries, and you're going to have, like one of the things that we were exploring was the home performance XML data sets. How do you put home performance data into blockchains or notarize it? How do you do all these different types of data sets, and specifically like medical data. And so you may actually start to see that these become like the large data, like the big data mining sets. And you're going to start to see different interoperabilities in places that are really unexpected. Like, for example, in medical care, you're going to have all these. You'll have people's medical histories on blockchain in very secure ways, much more secure than we have today. And then you can actually mine that against, like, for example, home performance, like the air quality in someone's house might have an effect on their asthma. So there's all these new types of big data interoperabilities that are going to emerge.
So I think in terms of interoperability, I'll focus on that. We need interoperability in terms of lookups, right? Like queries, being able to provide a globally unique name and then be able to get back the same piece of information, whether that's on a given blockchain or across all blockchains. Interoperability of interoperability of domain names, interoperability of authentication protocols, interoperability of the way that we basically produce and authorize transactions. And so I think those three things, there's a lot of software being built in this space, a lot of people developing their own protocols. I think we're going to see some coalescing around a few core protocols. In terms of what we're doing, so I'll clarify a few things. Blockstack runs as plug that a little bit. Blockstack runs as a layer on top of the Bitcoin blockchain, but it can run on top of any blockchain. It can run on a permissioned blockchain. It can run on Ethereum and whatever. The way it works is it's a kind of a virtual layer on top of the blockchain. And we're actually working with Microsoft and Consensus to have a cross-blockchain naming system where someone can actually look up an item and get back the information, whether it's on Bitcoin or Ethereum or another blockchain. And I think that's really important. I would like to see people get behind other efforts in the space, like in terms of Bitcoin payments. I think CoPay by BitPay is a really good multi-signature wallet and protocol for doing multi-device signing of transactions. I think Shapeshift is a really good model in terms of exchanges where you only hold the funds in transit. The exchange only holds the funds in transit, and there doesn't need to be additional funds stored beyond that. And I also think Lightning Network is a really good protocol that a lot of people are getting behind. Multiple businesses are working on their own Lightning protocol implementations, which is basically a way to do very high speed, high volume transactions off of the blockchain and then allow them to settle back onto the Bitcoin blockchain, but we're seeing the same protocol being ported to other blockchains as well.
Yeah, okay, so I just wanted to add one last thing from my viewpoint, is that you're all here because you sense something happening, and you're right. What's happening is more than a paradigm shift, actually. The most important thing about blockchains is that it allows us to have conversations about inclusion, about permission democracy, about all of these interesting things that we've been trying to do with the internet. Anyone know what the 402 page is on the internet? Okay, so you know the 404 page is when you don't have a domain, right? 404, not known, right? The 402 page is the payments page, and that has never been actuated on the internet, ever. So what we're talking about, and when that could be peer-to-peer, sort of this permissioned financial aspect of a global economy, that's what we're talking about now. So these assets that we're talking about actually create new economies, they create new modalities, new ways to think about money and about value. I suggest if you really are interested in that, you read a book called The Philosophy of Money by George Simmel, who's a philosopher from the early 1900s, and he presages all of this. This is the end of, and not in a bad way, but the end of capitalism. We're in a post-capitalist society. These assets are going to actually drive a lot of financial inclusion around the world. And as was said earlier on the panel, you're going to see billionaires pop up on their cell phones in the most unlikely places. Sub-Saharan Africa, deep in the forest of Chile, in Estonia. You're going to actually see people working this new system in ways that are pretty incredible. And it's not too far away, quite frankly.
I know the next panel is talking, or one of the next panels is talking about how we're sort of replacing the internet of money. And when I first got into Bitcoin, I really thought that's what it was going to be.
Much more things than just money.
That's where I'm going with that. I don't think that we're going to
Not
replace.
just value, but other things as well.
I don't think we're going to just build like a new layer of
everything.
internet for money. I think we're going to replace the entire internet itself.
Yes.
Like you're going to see,
Oh, yeah.
you're going to start to see websites that like Airbnb or what is it, Arcade City? Like those are going to be served directly from blockchains. They're not going to be served from HTTP servers anymore.
Yeah.
We're going to replace the entire internet.
So Arcade City is using our authentication protocol, by the way.
So as you can see, all of our panelists are incredibly friendly, so please find them at the networking hour, because I know we could go on for a long time and we're already over our time. So I'm sorry we don't have time for questions, but thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry I was late.